It's 1932. In response to a devastating flood in 1916, the Netherlands is close to completing the Afsluitdijk, an audacious dam that cuts off the Zuydersee from the North Sea. The dam will protect cities and villages along the interior coast and make it possible to add new territory through land reclamation, enough to create a 12th province and achieve food security. In Vienna, someone is watching closely. His name is Sigmund Freud. He's intrigued by Dutch ingenuity, their bold land reclamation project, and their victory over the sea. It seems to him that what the Dutch are doing is similar to what he's been trying to do. Wait, Freud compared himself to the Dutch? Yup, he did. Perhaps you've heard of the id, the ego, and the superego. As the Dutch installed industrial pumps to drain some of the dammed-up waters of the Zuydersee, now known as the IJsselmeer, Freud was thinking about how to explain his model of the human soul. According to him, the id, that dark, inaccessible part of the personality, was like the black waters that extend treacherously into the open sea. The poor, vulnerable ego emerged precariously from the desiring id, which it struggled to control while living up to the superego's scolding demands within the bounds of the external world. The goal of psychoanalysis, Freud said, and I'm quoting him here, is to reinforce the ego, to make it more independent of the superego, to widen its field of perception and extend its organization so that it can reclaim new pieces of the id. Where id was, there ego shall be. This is cultural labor, not unlike the reclamation of the Zuydersee. End quote. Let me see if I get this. The ego, that tissue of self-awareness that struggles to keep everything together, is like a polder in the Netherlands. You can protect it by surrounding it with strong dikes and pumps that expel the watery influence of the id and keep the ego's feet dry, while strengthening its capacity to meet complex and conflicting demands and desires. I like this. But there is one thing Freud did not consider: subsidence. When you drain a body of water to expose clay on the seafloor, as in the case of the Zuydersee polders, or lower the water table in peaty terrain, as in many low-lying areas of the Green Heart in the Randstad, land begins to subside. Clay shrinks. Peat oxidizes, releasing massive amounts of greenhouse gases. Both result in surface lowering. There's an art to living on peaty terrain. Long ago, the Dutch were masters. Over time, they became a lesson in how not to do it. Don't dig up peat to burn as fuel or to extract salt, as the Dutch did in the Middle Ages, despite knowing the consequences. Don't drain peat bogs or the lakes you've inadvertently created through extraction, or turn them into polders to build villages, towns, and cities. And don't lower the water table in meadows to accommodate heavy cattle and even heavier machines. Every part of the west and north of the country has its own soil makeup and its own subsidence story. The overriding moral is, drained peat subsides. Land subsidence is costly. Depending on location, type of foundation, and how high or low the water table is set because of competing demands, homes and infrastructure sink, often unevenly. Repair and maintenance are a constant expense. Home values can sink with the soils they're built on. It's estimated that if subsidence is not curtailed by raising the water table, repairing the damage will cost the Dutch up to 60 billion euros or more. And if you still haven't stopped subsidence, hit the repeat button. All of this brings up a funny question. If the ego is like a polder, what does a subsiding ego look like? I've given this some thought, and I think it would look a lot like the Netherlands. Good governance, state-of-the-art infrastructure, stellar water management, every square meter optimized, a happy nation thriving below sea level. And the ego says, in a tone meant to convince itself, everything's fine, everything's under control. But if you step up and look at the big picture, it seems kinda crazy. Sea level rise is accelerating. The ice sheets on Antarctica are melting faster than expected. Meanwhile, the most vulnerable parts of the Netherlands continue to sink. Cognitive dissonance to the max. Two contradictory ideas separated by a mental Afsluitdijk. It's a new one for the DSM. We'll call it subsiding ego disorder. Yes, we live in the safest delta on Earth. Yes, we've fine-tuned our system so that we become quality-of-life specialists. It's fun to be Dutch. Ride a kilometer on my bike, enjoy a borrel in a cafe on my town square, hit the beach at Zandvoort, or take the ferry to Ameland. Admit it, you'd move here too if you could. At the same time, it's true, we do live in one of the most precarious deltas on Earth. This is where the superego comes in, those nagging voices of authority we routinely ignore, such as Johan van Veen, the father of the Delta Works, who said, "The higher the dike, the worse the flood." And didn't the World Economic Forum 2023 Global Risks Report say that the biggest risk the Netherlands faces, alone of all European countries, is the potential failure of our climate adaptation efforts? And yet, it still seems to us that the costs of addressing the causes of subsidence and climate change don't warrant sacrificing the benefits of business as usual. Honestly, we'd just rather not talk about it. Let that sink in. For a minute, or a century. That is the sound of a subsiding ego, right up to the point that it goes glub. Will the Dutch find ways to keep their subsiding ego afloat? We'll be watching. I'm Poldergeist. You know where to find me. I'll be right here, peering beneath the surface. Because when it comes to water and the Dutch, there's more going on than meets the eye.